Hello and Assalamu alaikum. I am Parvez Khan. I am an assistant professor in the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, Kohat University of Science and Technology. The subject is National and International Affairs. Is our lecture number 16, which is Pakistan and Nuclear Program Implications in South Asian Politics. First, let's discuss the objectives of this session. That students will be able to understand Pakistan's nuclear development in the context of South Asian politics. Students will be able to understand how Pakistan develops its nuclear program over the years in the face of rising hostility from its neighbor. And students will be able to consider modern threats it poses in terms of warfare and to consider alternate measures, whether civilian nuclear technology can be used and what can be the future ahead. So let's talk about Pakistan's nuclear program right from the start. That Pakistan in 1970s embarked upon the uranium enrichment route to acquire a nuclear weapons capability. It's very important, the 1970s phase for Pakistan. And then obviously in Pakistan conducted nuclear test in 1998. Shortly after nuclear test, it declared itself as a nuclear weapon state. And then we can see that Pakistan currently possesses a growing nuclear arsenal and remain outside both the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons (NPT) and the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, which is the CTBT. So this is a bit about Pakistan's nuclear program in short, but we have to go into historical context to understand this more. Pakistan has always said that the nuclear program is about the defense. It's not aggressive, it's for their defense purposes, and that's why Pakistan asserts that the origin of its nuclear weapon program lies in its adversarial relationship with India. And both these countries have had serious strained relationship over the Kashmir issue on the top. So that's why nuclear program remains at the heart of Pakistan's defense policy, because we can see that the forces, the opposite that lies there in Kashmir area, and the wars that taken place between the two countries. There was a need for deterrent, a technology, a weapon. That's what the Pakistani stance is all about. And then Pakistan started working on a nuclear program in the late 1950s. And the Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission, which is the PAEC, was established in 1956. And we've often heard the famous statement of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto that we will eat grass, but we will build a nuclear bomb. And that's why in May 1974, when Indian nuclear tests prompted Pakistan to speed up their nuclear program. So it was in the 1970s that Pakistan looked forward to that. And initially, when all this started, Canada provided a 137 megawatt heavy duty water nuclear reactor known as the Canada Deuterium Uranium CANDU, which is the reactor was installed at Karachi Nuclear Power Plant Kanoop and was soon producing weapons grade plutonium. And France also agreed to supply the Cheshma plutonium plant as well, and they were supporting it initially. But then the international community cracked down on the proliferation of nuclear materials. After India's first nuclear test in 1974, that is when the international support was withdrawn, and there were some concerns for both India and Pakistan that the civilian technology might be used in the weapons, and that can be dangerous. So even Canada withdrew its support later on in 1976, and France never completed the Chashma plant in Pakistan. So it just seemed that the plutonium bomb in Pakistan suddenly seemed like a distant reality. And that's the situation that we always see that although there was initial support, but then it couldn't happen. But still, Pakistan was determined, and the development took place in 1970s, which is why around 1975, Abdul Qadir Khan, who was working as a big name in Pakistan's nuclear history, he came from Netherlands and returned to Pakistan to develop a uranium enrichment program. And that is when Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who was the prime minister back then, was keenly interested in Pakistan's development of nuclear bomb to protect itself from the Indian aggression. That's what the Pakistani stance was in those days. And Qadir Khan brought centrifuge designs and business contacts with him to Pakistan, and he used various tactics. And also, he helped in evading the international export controls and helped Pakistan to acquire the necessary equipments in 1970s when there was a lot of scrutiny about Pakistan's growing program. And then by the early 1980s, we can say Pakistan had a clandestine uranium enrichment facility, and Abdul Khadir Khan would assert that Pakistan has a nuclear device by 1984. So Pakistan program in the 10 years from 1975 to 1985 was fully developed, fully capable of producing nuclear arsenals, and that's when that was parallel to the Soviet-Afghan context as well, because in 1979 there were concerns about the Soviet aggression. Soviet invaded Afghanistan, and Pakistan became ally to the United States in the Cold War, and that's when the things started to change. The Soviet-Afghan context is very important. Pakistan, while supporting United States in their fight against Soviet empire, proved beneficial in terms of nuclear program for Pakistan. And Ronald Reagan, the American president, dispersed rumors that Pakistan was building a nuclear bomb. Basically, America turned a blind eye towards the Pakistan's development of nuclear program, which turned a blessing in disguise for Pakistan, because initially building the bombs was very, very scrutinized. It was a difficult process to get approvals to stand. Only a few countries in the world had atomic bomb, and countries, obviously, the new countries like Pakistan and India, which were not even economically stable, it was a huge risk allowing them to make their bombs. But the circumstances helped. The Soviet-Afghan context helped Pakistan build the bomb. And even Ziaul Haq, the president at the time, despite we've seen several interviews where he's denying that no, we are not making any bomb. There is only work for civilian nuclear technology, and that's it. But here comes another player in the context that Pakistan cannot ignore the Chinese support, because Pakistan also received assistance from other states, especially particularly China. China's support was instrument. And beginning in the 1970s, China provided Pakistan with various levels of nuclear and missile-related assistance, including centrifuge equipment, warhead designs, components of various missile systems, and technical expertise. And that was crucial for Pakistan nuclear program to develop under economic and under international pressure. We must not forget that these were testing times of Pakistan, the 1970s, particularly with the war in India, the war with India in 1971, which was economically, which proved very disastrous for Pakistan. There was huge economic crisis. In those circumstances, Pakistan developing a nuclear program and also the international pressure, I think that's where China proved beneficial for Pakistan. And then we have the iconic picture of the blast, the nuclear blast that took place in 1998 on May 28th. In 1998, it was aired on national television. It was considered as Pakistan's proud moment, where it had attained the capability of a nuclear state. So this is the iconic picture that we've taken from Pakistan television. But let's go back to 1998 onwards. On 11th and 13th May 1998, India conducted a total of 5 nuclear explosions, and this was really the testing time. Despite severe pressure, Pakistan responded and detonated 5 explosions on 28th May and a sixth on 30th May 1998. And this is where, with these tests, Pakistan abandoned its nuclear ambiguity and stated that it would remain a credible minimum deterrent against India. And this is where Pakistan declared itself as a nuclear state. And that was a testing time. Despite the pressure, Pakistan conducted these tests. And although the Pakistan does not have formally declared nuclear doctrine, and it remains unclear that under which circumstances Pakistan might use these nuclear weapons, but Pakistan has made it clear that it's aimed solely at India and would only be used for defense purposes. And since we've had support from China in the past, the present context of Chinese support is equally important. In response to the US India deal, Pakistan sought to increase its civilian nuclear cooperation with China. And under the previous cooperation framework, China supplied Pakistan with 2 pressurized water reactors, and then obviously at Chasnook and Chasnook 2, that entered into commercial operations in 2000 and then 2011 respectively. In 2009, China Nuclear Corporation CNNC agreed to supply 2 additional 340 megawatt power reactors to Pakistan, which is Chasnook 3 and Chasnook 4. And obviously, the United States voiced concern regarding the Chinese constructions of these nuclear reactors at Chashma, but since Pakistan has been closed ally with China, it's going on still. In 2000, let's talk about the recent developments. In 2015, Pakistan declared that it had developed a tactical nuclear weapons And then the Pakistan government has clarified that these will be used only in the event with a conflict with India. And the official announcement has caused concern within the international community, particularly the United States. The weapons, the small size, have ignited concern of the possible destabilizing effects in the potential conflict with India. But as of the 2016 Nuclear Threat Initiative estimates that the Pakistan arsenal is at 100 and 122 warheads. So yes, this is what brings us to our next mode of discussion, which is that all this is basically leading towards some international concerns as well, because the nuclear arms race in Asia has raised some international concerns, and the first one is proliferation. International communities concerned that both India and Pakistan, what if their nuclear programs are leaked to other countries which are unstable, where democracy is still a big question, countries with security issues, how will it respond to it? So, international community has been concerned about the nuclear proliferation programs, both from the Asian countries and the associated risk that it brings. So, the next one is regional security. So, obviously, if Pakistan and India, or countries with nuclear powers, are at a risk of war, uh, how the countries are going to respond, how it's going to go, will it cause any regional stability? Is it going to cause any problems? So, in terms of regional security, the international bodies are much more concerned. So, this is the second concern which comes from international bodies and the leading countries, and obviously there has been issue in the Asian countries, particularly after the Afghanistan since 2001, militancy at its peak, the cross-border infiltrations. This has been a concern for some communities that whether countries where militancy is at peak will it harm their nuclear program. So that has been the international concern. This is not something that we are saying, because Pakistan has always claimed that their nuclear program is safe, it's in safer hands, it's well maintained. But these are some of the international concerns that comes with obviously the nuclear countries that are running the nuclear programs. There are some international concerns, and then these three are of them. And then obviously it also leads towards the regional balance of power, whether a country which possesses nuclear technology, does it changes the regional balance of power? And obviously, the world system, the world politics is based on allies, and it's how countries work. So, if a country that is not a capitalist country and it has some different tendency and is towards another bloc, will it change the balance of power? So, these have been some of the international concerns. Particularly, the regional balance of power was a much bigger concern when Soviet Union was in power, and if any country had it still towards Soviet Union, how it would have responded. So these are some of the international concerns that we need to know that comes with all the countries that basically possess nuclear technology, particularly developing countries. When they have a nuclear program, these will always be the international concerns. And then let's talk about risks. Obviously, nuclear programs may sound flashy. It's always a great deterrent. It's always something that many countries claim that it has been a great tool of the security and safety. But it always comes with operational risks. We must understand that running a nuclear program is not easy. It's difficult. There is always the maintenance issues and a lot of scientific because obviously we have seen that safety concern is another one. There have been safety concerns even in the developed countries. We know that in Fukushima and in Japan, we have seen that basically there have been some radiation issues, spillage, and there have been serious concerns when it comes to safety. And recently, I would give a very good example of Chernobyl, where it was the whole nuclear plant. It caused a radiation in the city, and it still is having an effect on its local population. And there's a very good television series made by HBO on Chernobyl disaster, which can give you an idea the associated risks involved with the nuclear programs. And then obviously the uranium mining risks are there. How uranium comes out, it's not that simple. It's a complicated process, and along with these all these kinds of risks, there is always a financial and regulatory risk as well. It's not easy. It's hard to maintain. Obviously, countries are investing more on their nuclear arsenal, warheads, and it's there. There is always going to be regulatory issues. Risks are there, and we need to understand that these programs just don't come free. There'll always be risks. And then the major problem in countries, developing countries like Pakistan and India, is always going to be the unresolved waste management issues. Obviously, there's a waste material that's going to go out, and these waste materials are always be will always contain radioactive materials, which can be problematic in some sense. It can create disasters. It can affect marine life. It can affect the human beings. It can be serious. Then we have the obviously we've already discussed this, but nuclear weapons proliferation. If it gets out, if it goes out to a country, what will happen if North Korea starts attacking everyone else or any other country for sake? These are the risks which international community believes can cause problems because if a country is politically unstable, and there's a nuclear program as well, that can be a huge risk as well. But obviously, uh, uh, terrorism is another reason why the powers, and particularly the ruling global powers, believe that terrorism is also a risk, because what will happen if the global warheads reach into the hands of terrorist groups or whatever extremist groups that are around the world? And obviously, it's not just limited to one region. Terrorism can come from anywhere. It can be any locality. It can be from any race. It can be from any region. So you cannot limit terrorism to just the Asian country. The risks, obviously, the risks are there for the developing countries. There's more rules and regulations, but obviously these risks are the same even for the most developed countries. We never know what happens. White supremacy in America is also a big issue, and we cannot just say that the risks is concerned with just Asian countries. It's all around. It's a global phenomenon now. And then obviously the arms competition, the race that's going on. Countries are producing more and more warheads. They're going head to head. They're investing more. So obviously, if the stockpile of these things, how it's going to go and how it's going to end, obviously, it's not going to go good anyway. So these are some of the associated risks that we need to understand that comes with this program. And we also need to understand that what did we learn in the entire session. So let's summarize what we learned. Uh, Basically, it's good to see and review what we've done. So let's go. Pakistan developed its nuclear program in rivalry with India, and obviously India did the same. Both these countries, they developed their nuclear program because of its rivalry and survival issues. And it started in late 50s, but it gained pace in 1970s. And despite international pressures, Pakistan was finally able to build a nuclear bomb, and that's what Pakistan did, despite the hurdles, despite the problems, despite the threats. Finally, there's a nuclear bomb that Pakistan has, and it works as a deterrent for Pakistan. So, as a student, you can ask questions. You can think about many questions that can come to your mind. It can be related to how the program got developed, and how do you see Pakistan in the context of nuclear programs. Do you think that this nuclear technology, do you think that does it serve as a deterrent? And because do you think that the wars that took place between the Pakistan and India, the 1948, 65, and 71, and since the nuclear bomb is there, do you think it has been a strong deterrent? How do you see it in the context of Kargil war? And what is your personal opinion about uh, the nuclear weapons? Do you think that more safety, more regulations, and more systematic approach is required? Even the international concerns, the safety issues. Do you think there needs to be much more work? And do you also think that all communities, including developed and developing countries, need to sign a contract that human life is more precious, and in case there should be effort to curtail any kind of anything that goes wrong. So these are the kind of questions you can think. You can even come up with, you can compare it with the other countries as well, what their nuclear programs are. How do you see your program in the Muslim world? Do you see Pakistan as the only Muslim country with nuclear atomic bombs? So how do you see that? So these are all the questions that will give you much more depth in approaching a topic, and always approach this topic from multi dimensions. You can look at the positives, you can also look at the negatives, you can also look at the safety issues and concerns. So it will give you much more depth as an analyst if you are going to analyze these issues on a bigger platform as a journalist. So this is what we are looking for. So I hope that you enjoyed the session, and these are some of the references that we have used. Uh, so I hope that you enjoyed the session. Today's session was particularly in Pakistan's nuclear program. Previously, we discussed the associated risk with nuclear technology around the world, but this was specifically on Pakistan. So I hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you very much, and have a great day.